So welcome to Tech at the Table. Tech at the Table is a new series from sponsored by Flexera. We're bringing industry leaders like you, I would call them mavericks, to the table to talk about the future, really the future of our business, the future of technology, the future of the world, and how it impacts what we do today. So I'm thrilled to have you as our first guest. We've known each other for years, worked together. Tell us a little bit about what you do and what drives your passions at work and otherwise.
Oh, lovely. Yes, and thank you. You're very welcome, and thank you for having me. So I'm Salomé Keet. I work for FirstRand Bank in South Africa. I've been in software asset management and IT finance for around 20 years. I hope you can't tell. And
Yeah, what?
in FinOps for about the last 5 years. That was the right answer. And FinOps for about 4 to 5 years now. I think what drives my passion it's really to optimize cost and to save money. That is really what makes me get up in the morning is to take something and to see whether we can optimize it, whether we can make it better, cheaper, and I think that is what I've been trying to do in my organization.
It's interesting. You just reminded me, okay. And I was raised with my mom and dad. My mom was an accountant, okay. She was a controller,
Mhm.
became kind of a chief financial person. But boy, I grew up in a household like that. So I think that's why I'm in the business as well. It's this passion to make the most of what we have and be that kind. That's fascinating. So do you think, like in the world today, so when you think about the world, which is an interesting place at
Mm,
the moment, do you
mm.
think that that passion is well placed? Do you think that it leads us to a better place? How do you think about it in terms of the future and where we're going?
I think absolutely, and I think absolutely in South Africa, and that's maybe also, as you say, maybe that is why I am the way I am. Because we have our own problems and our own issues here, and I mean, budgets are always a concern, and making the most of what you've got is kind of in our DNA. So
Yeah, yeah.
I think in what I found during, well, let's say, my travels and when I've spoken to some of the European counterparts and so on, I think some corporations have been a little bit more blessed in terms of leeway, in terms of software spend and things like that. But for us here in South Africa, it's always been a big thing. You know, Budgets have always been tight. It's now even worse, right? But make the most of what you've got. And I think that's just how I've grown up. And I think a lot of people now that I'm hearing when they are saying, "Oh, but we've got budget issues, we've got budget cuts, etc." I think they are also now at the place that us in South Africa have been for a long time.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like you've, in a way, I see it in my position, my job day to day. I get to speak to executives from all over the globe every day. And I think to some extent you're right that others have had a different perspective maybe than you've had. They're we'll say surprised or it's not quite as ingrained in them culturally or in personally this kind of an attitude. And I think in a way you're well set up for the kind of volatility that's going on in the world right now. You're a leader in that,
I,
I would think. Yeah,
yeah,
that's good.
I would.
So
I like to think.
so you said you were in FinOps for 5 years. So FinOps is financial operations. It's been around about 5 years. It sounds like you joined right, you're a pioneer. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say a pioneer. So look, we've been from a software asset management and an IT asset management point of view. We've been looking at cloud expenditure when it came in, when it became part of our portfolios, right? So we didn't call it FinOps way back then, and it wasn't FinOps way back then. It was just part of what we were doing.
Yeah.
So, when FinOps actually was grown and matured, I went to my executive and I said to them, "Can I have this? Can I integrate this with what we are doing?" So really, I've been growing with our cloud operations team as we and they, as they have matured, we have matured, and so I've been blessed to be in that position, to be able to have been doing that.
It's very early. It's interesting. It's very early. I mean, I remember hosting a roundtable 3 years ago about how the unexpected consequences of cloud and what that will do to your bottom line and to your IT operations, your IT budget, and so on. And even 3 years ago, and this was in, I think it was New York City, the one I remember, people were not surprised by it, but reacting to it, and you were way ahead of it. It's interesting. I've heard you're writing a
Yeah.
book. I know you're writing a book and you're co-authoring with some other authors, and it has this fascinating title. I just thought I'd bring it up, which is "The Answer is FinOps. What is the question?" Okay, that's pretty provocative. So tell me why you went that direction, but based on your 5 years of experience.
No, so the one thing that you've got to recognize is that FinOps has become a movement. And I think the FinOps Foundation and JR and the team have done amazing work in creating a lot of energy around FinOps. And FinOps is on every executive's, certainly on my executives' plate and on their one of their highest priorities at this time. So for me, as IT asset management, we should, instead of fighting FinOps or instead of trying to create a them and us situation, we should join the movement, right? All of that energy is good energy. The energy is about creating value. The energy is about optimizing cost. And I think for me, and I think that's where my book is going, is IT asset management, software asset management, ITFM. I mean, instead of fighting it, let's join the movement. Let's create value for our companies. Maybe we're not calling it FinOps, it's not that we're trying to lose our identities and everybody is becoming FinOps. No, but it is about joining the movement, joining the energy, and together creating all the value.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, I love that. It's a movement. I mean, I feel very Les Miserables here, flag. But I agree with you. JR, who's JR Storment, he really, that he at the head of the FinOps Foundation really did create it's more than a science. It's almost a way of life for people like us who care about the financial management of IT of companies. So I love that concept of the movement. Let's kind of stay with that. Like there's a
Mhm.
because it's a movement. I mean, do you see resistance in a struggle, with the people who are not or not naturally part of the movement? For example, okay, you have a whole IT asset management profession, software asset management, hardware asset management, and so on. Do you see a struggle with them joining this movement? Are they willingly going over? Are they resisting?
I see some struggle. I see in a lot of cases, people are feeling as if they will give away their identity. I
Wow.
see that, people don't really understand what FinOps is about. So, it is that perspective of really what is going to happen with my
Yeah.
job. Um, uh, uh, but for me, it's born out of not really understanding that what we are doing is really so close that we are brother and sister in the best ways. So I think once people, and I think that's also a part of why my book is really exciting me, because it is just getting people to understand that what we are doing is really in effect very much the same, or at least very closely aligned, and just understand that the future is there for us.
Yeah, what do you think happens? So making them more comfortable, making it more inviting, but then again, it's a movement, and movements can be scary. Education, I don't have the background. It moves at a different pace, uses different words. What happens to the practitioners who don't join it? Do you think that they're gone in a few years? Do you think that what happens?
Look, I hope not, but for me, you've got to evolve, right? You've got to
Right.
evolve, or you're going to stay behind. If you look at the world of licensing, I mean, perpetual licensing is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Everything is moving to SaaS. Everything is moving to subscription. If you look at the cloud, so much of our estates that we previously managed is going into the cloud now. So unless you find your place and unless you are actually starting to work and find out how do you do licensing in the cloud, right? How do you actually evolve to become a a professional in the cloud, uh, potentially? I think your world's going to become very small.
No, it makes sense. I mean, I agree with you. I think I may be a little bit more. out there about it, but I think of the world of DevOps. You remember when DevOps came into the world of research and development and coding and so on? There was a lot of resistance to it. There were tools, there were careers built around old style integration and build and testing and so on. And they either jumped on the bandwagon or they didn't. And now DevOps, DevSecOps, it is the way, right? There isn't really no other way. And yeah, so you're saying the same thing is going to happen with FinOps. What the other way to look at it is what's going to happen if you don't. But what are the
Mm.
implications if you do? Are there other areas that the professionals can get into? Like, what do you think the future holds?
So I think, right, for me, licensing is not dead. It has just moved. Um, and I think what software asset management and hardware asset management professionals can play a big role is actually just understanding the cloud environments, understanding what is the right, cloud optimized architectures, cloud optimized software architectures, and just use your knowledge that you've now just spent years and years building up of on premise and transfer it in the on cloud in an on cloud environment. I mean, uh, you know, what we have been doing is not dead, but it has moved. And I think for us to just evolve and stay with it, I think, I think and I think actually
Yeah.
there's a lot of excitement in my mind for actually moving to the cloud and learning new things and
Right.
broadening
Right.
broadening your horizons. Yeah.
I was talking to a customer the other day, and we were just talking about, and licensing is just one use case. There's all kinds, right? In the world of FinOps, you're talking to application owners, you're talking to
Mm.
security. There's all these. But it was just this fascinating conversation about a publisher who shall remain nameless. And the metrics around contracts have completely changed. It used to be how many seats did you have, right? How many users did you have? But now it's become all about a combination of that and consumption. And consumption has all these different metrics. And with AI, it's even more complicated, right? So you have to learn that. And I imagine that makes people uncomfortable and or they see the challenge of it and they want to embrace it. That's my guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So you're advocating for this unified model, and it's built on FinOps between asset management and the world of cloud financial management, now called FinOps. You're very convicted around FinOps is the way to work. So why is that conviction so strong? What forces, are holding that back? How do we win? How does the movement actually win? How do we storm the barricades and win the day?
I think by just breaking down the silos, right? I think
Yeah.
the ITAM
Yeah.
Forum and the FinOps Foundation is now looking to potentially merge. There's a fantastic use case. Let's break down the silos. And I'm saying merge loosely. It really is. There's
Yeah.
talk of the ITAM Forum moving under the Linux Foundation as a sister company. So, but that's it is breaking down those silos. It's working closer together. It is going to your friend in FinOps and saying, hey, what is it that you do, and how can we help each other if there's no other way to enter. um, I really think it shouldn't be this hard. And I think it's all about perspective, and it's all about just understanding what it is that both areas are doing. um, and
Silos Silos are incredibly difficult to break down. Like they seem so simple. I remember the days of islands of information or, siloed computing. Even across cloud providers, there were silos. Why are silos so difficult? Why is it so hard? Because it is. You see it all over the industry. I think less than 10% of our community across asset management and FinOps has actually converged it into one team, right? Many are
Mhm.
collaborating, let's say half, 60% are collaborating, but there's still a huge tail of non-collaboration, right? They're just isolated. Why is it so hard? What is so difficult about working across the aisle, so to speak?
Look, I think it's resistance to change. I really do. But, I think as we are evolving and as the FinOps methodology is evolving, and understanding also the role of IT asset management and of software asset management, I think, you know, we are already part of the extended FinOps model, right? So perhaps what it will take is eventually being part of that mandate. But I don't think we should be waiting until then. I think it is a far better idea to put your hand up and to say, listen, let us work together and let us grow this thing together, as opposed to
Yeah.
waiting for the FinOps Foundation to create some movement.
Leadership. Okay, so you take command of it and lead it. It totally makes sense. I mean, how about management support and leadership support inside? Let's take, you don't have to take your company, but how do you see that across the industry? Do you think it's supported top down? You said you have executive support all the way to the top. Do you see that as an obstacle or, and why? Why, if you do?
I I think it may be an obstacle at the moment, and again, because of FinOps potentially reporting to one piece of the business and IT asset management reporting to another piece of the business. But again, for us as leadership and as as industry leaders as well, I think we've got to drive really hard to create those awareness, to create the awareness, and so that people can actually understand what it is that each piece of the disciplines are doing. Roy, it isn't necessarily going to be an easy fix. I think IT asset management and ITFM and all of the other potential disciplines that's been affected here or that can potentially join, we've been on our own and we've been operating for many, many, many years, right? So I
Yeah.
think uh, uh, what we are trying to do is potentially not that easy, but it's doable.
Got it. I think it takes a lot of courage to go up the chain. I always have this other, it's sort of a joke, but it's true too, which is once it gets on the CFO's agenda, it becomes real. And I think the more we get in front of the CFO, we get in front of the CIO, it'll drive it because they see it and they see cost as not just something to think about as an afterthought, but as something that's strategic because it enables so much more. So what do you think? So from an action point of view, if you were going to give advice, which you might, because you will be a published author, right, at some point, and you're in the industry and you're giving it today. What advice, what action should people take, either practitioner level, manager level, and above? What should happen in your opinion? What should they do?
Educate yourself, I think is the first portion for me. Understand what it is that FinOps is if you're an ITAM person and other way around.
Yeah,
And I think, then really, as I was saying earlier, just start and start small. Maybe it is getting an invite to the architecture board that is designing the cloud applications, for argument's sake. Maybe it's that. But start and start driving the value that you can bring to the table, because there is a lot of value that the ITAM people can already bring to the FinOps table and vice versa.
okay, so educate, incremental, start small, build up, and then value, focus on value. You said something in there which I have to probe a little bit, which is, you know, get on the group, the architectural boards, new application design, and so on. So I have to say it. So the world of AI. Okay, so AI is all over that world. There's most, always go where the best and coolest and most business impacting workloads are, and those are in the AI camp. What do you think of AI's impact here? Do you think the future is integrally involved with AI? How do you look at
Mhm.
that?
Enormous,
Okay,
enormous.
yeah,
But
of
I think
course.
it is such a blessing, actually, right? Because, I mean, that is just extending our arms. AI can't do
Look,
without us actually instructing it to do, right?
yeah,
You've got to give the right, you've got to ask the right questions. But what a wonderful tool to have, and it reduces the time that you actually spend on tasks enormously, right?
yeah.
So I'm very excited to see what the future holds. Even for software vendors like Flexera, I'm very excited to see where this is going, because I think there is enormous potential here to make everything a lot swifter and easier.
The other thing about AI too is it reminds me a little bit of the early days of cloud. So 10 years ago, 7 years ago in cloud, people were using it, they were driving the workloads. It was very exciting. A lot of business value was created. We saw that the other day when we've had an outage and how much business was affected by it. Um, but it was also out of control from a spend point of view. People didn't think about it up front, and at least people not like us. AI seems to have some of those characteristics too. And it seems to me that potentially FinOps, or the new FinOps, and its control and its ability to harness and kind of corral AI would be a huge benefit over the next few years. Like it's a win that we can go get.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. 100%.
Okay, cool. So it's a fairly binary picture, black and white kind of picture. You either join the movement or you don't. You know, it's education, incremental value orientation. Maybe there's this killer solution set around AI. Are there any other benefits in your mind? Like when I'm listening to this podcast and I'm thinking it through and I'm like, what does it mean for me? What other benefits from a career point of view or from an individual point of view do you think that are out there?
So that's, I think that is one of the major benefits, Roy, because as a software asset management professional, you had one direction to go in, right? So joining the movement, you can join a FinOps. You can actually become a FinOps practitioner if you want to. You know, FinOps has their own set of activities, etc. So you're really just growing your career in so many aspects. If you are joining it. So from a personal point of view, I think it's a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just calling yourself a certain, labeling yourself in a certain way, you now have a lot more options if you are allowing yourself to evolve. For me, as I say, it's a no-brainer.
I really want to thank you for joining us again in this inaugural broadcast. What are your any thoughts to leave the audience and things you're thinking about right now that we should ponder?
Look, it's all about value. For me, I think at the end of the day, it is all about creating value. You see a lot of industries struggling at the moment. You're seeing a lot in the world struggling at the moment. And I think the perspective must always be, what is the value that you can create and how can you maximize the value that you create? And I think that if as long as that is your North Star, um, I think you can't go wrong.
Beautiful. Those are great words. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. And we will be talking soon. Hopefully, everybody will have the chance to interact with Salome. Please interact and engage with this episode. And we'll see you next time at Tech at the Table. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week and have a great day,
Thank you.
Salome.
Cheers. Bye bye.
Bye bye.